Many years ago, I got a telephone call from someone at the BBC. He needed a focus puller and he needed one now. Could I do the job? They were filming another version of Ivanhoe, this time at Aden Castle in Northumbria, which wasn't very far from me, and could I be there by 2 o'clock or whenever it was? I very nearly talked myself out of the job. You see, I had listed focus pulling as amongst my skills in the Northern Register of film crews. But as I said to him rather foolishly honestly, I'm not really a focus puller. I have focus pulled on a couple of small productions, so I know I can do it. But principally my skills lie elsewhere. But yeah, okay, I can do it. And he took me on. So I turned up and I encountered the most appalling film snobbery. Now, I knew that it existed, but it was still quite a shock to encounter it in the raw, so to speak. There was another focus puller already there. He was the guy who was the sort of permanent crew on the #1 camera, but because they were shooting a lot of action and they wanted wide shots shot at the same time and so forth, they had a second camera unit and they needed a focus puller for that, or at least they felt they needed a focus puller for that. Why do film cameras have focus pullers? It's not really necessary, but it's the way film, at least then, was done. And video cameramen, meanwhile, are their own focus pullers. Now that's actually quite sensible in some ways, because when you're pulling focus on the video camera and you're also the cameraman, you can see the effect you're having. So if something is coming into focus, you can see when you're just about there, and when it's there, you can stop. Whereas when you're a focus puller and you're just holding the camera, looking at the thing and trying to judge the distance, you can't actually see what the camera's seeing, and so you think, about there? Now, maybe you've pre-measured it and the actor's hit his mark, in which case you should be spot on, but maybe the actor doesn't hit his mark. Or maybe you're shooting, as I was that day, a dog that's walking around, so you've just got to estimate. It's very difficult. The cameramen I'm most in awe of are sports cameramen. When you're, for instance, covering a football match and you're on the big camera that can cover the whole pitch and sweep from one end to the other, you've got a massive zoom lens on it. And when you zoom right in, your depth of field is tiny, tiny, tiny. So that guy who can follow the ball, he's no idea where the ball's going. It's not choreographed, it's not scripted. The ball suddenly goes that way and he zooms in following the ball, keeping it beautifully framed, goes right in on the goalie in that goal, and he's got him in focus. He's found that guy. He's tiny in the pitch. He's found him and he's in focus most of the time. How often do you see the cameraman zoom in and just lose the... Where is he? Oh, there he is. Which is extremely easy to do, and then you have to focus afterwards. No, as he's zooming in, he's finding that guy and focusing all in one smooth movement, and you don't even think about it. That is extremely difficult to do, and he is his own camera crew. Now, when I worked in a television studio as a cameraman for a while, I had this, sometimes we called them Daleks, as a pedestal that's on wheels. It can track in and out, it can crab left and right, it can crane up and down, you can point the whole thing this way and that way, and you've got your zoom in one hand and your focus in the other with your thumbs, and you are everything. A film cameraman has got dolly grips and so forth for moving him around. He's got his focus puller, and he talks about, well, why is that necessary? They actually said this to me. I was told that people said this, but I didn't sort of believe it, because could anyone really be this pretentious and stupid? But do you know, they can. He said, oh yeah, well, you see, filmmaking is a craft. That's the word they use. And so I'm framing the shot. He was actually saying that video cameramen don't have to frame the shot. How stupid is that? Of course they're framing the shot. They're framing the shot all the time. And they're doing it perfectly well and competently. Whether it's a documentary, nature thing, they're all framing the shot. The idea that you're not framing the shot because you're using a video camera is just patent lunacy. And it wasn't just the film crew as well that was incredibly film snobby. When I was there, I was playing the game of guessing the role, which is one way of trying to start a conversation. And I talked to this lady who was in a room getting on with something, and I said, you're PA, you're the PA, production assistant, because she seemed to be doing, filling that sort of role. And she said, well, sort of, only I don't do television, so I'm continuity. But she made it quite clear that she was above television. She didn't do television, she only did film because film was better. And if she were on a video production, she would just be a PA. But no, she's continuity, which is better somehow. It's actually virtually the same job, but what the heck. And I encountered a number of people there who had not been told stuff because the film camera crew was actually too technically naive and or arrogant to tell them. For instance, I was talking to a matte artist, and the matte artist couldn't understand why one of his matte paintings, which he thought was perfectly good, hadn't been used. The reason it not being used is that the characters were walking towards the camera away from a wall. The wall, which was a real wall, he had painted an artificial top to in his matte painting. So the artificial top to the wall was here in front of the camera, the real wall was there, and the actors were walking towards the camera, which meant that as you pulled focus and the cameras came, as the characters came towards you, because of course you'd focus on the characters, then the real wall would be going out of focus, but the fake wall on the bit of glass in front of the camera would be coming into focus and would then draw attention to itself, and you'd see that it was a painting. And I explained that to him, and oh, right. Nobody had told him. He was really annoyed. He'd gone to a lot of trouble to do this matte painting. Nobody had told him. And some of the naivety that the camera crew expressed. This idea that, oh, you don't have to worry with depth of field for videos because you just squirt and everything's in focus. That's absolute rubbish. A photon of light doesn't know, as it's hitting a lens, what it's going to be hitting having gone through the lens. It doesn't know whether there's a film or a CCD here. It's going to just bend through that lens as photons do, and then maybe it hits a bit of film, or maybe it hits a CCD, which is the sensor in a video camera. What affects depth of field is the size of the piece of film or the CCD, and they were using cameras that were actually had a sensitive region about the same size as the video cameras I used to use in the studio. So they were just wrong. In fact, in many ways, video camera work is a lot more difficult. Lighting for video is a lot more difficult. I worked on several productions where we would perhaps just have one light on and we'd just look at the way it looked and go, oh, if only we were working in film. That would be lit for film. You'd get these wonderful shadows and film, but in video it would look really terrible. In video, lighting is a lot more difficult. You've got to do a sort of general raising of the level and fill in the shadows and so forth. Otherwise the picture looks terrible. Video is getting better all the time, but it's still not in every way as good as film. And back then, the snobbery, and coupled with the technical naivety of those film crews was just terrible. Most of those people had not been trained from fundamentals in how to be a cameraman. They'd come up through doing. They'd worked as the guy who just lugged stuff about, and then they got, maybe became a grip, and then they became a focus puller, and then they became a cameraman, or then they became a DOP. And it's possible to go through all that without actually having any fundamental understanding of what you're doing. I was taught how to light by a guy who was in his 50s. He'd been a cameraman all his working life, very respected in the industry, and it became obvious to me he had absolutely no understanding of the technical stuff behind what he was doing. He didn't actually understand why bouncing a light off a big piece of white polystyrene made it softer. And because he didn't understand it, there were things that he couldn't do that I could do. We had a big argument once about the nature of polarization. He had this idea that if you use a Polaroid filter, it cuts down exposure by a certain amount. It's fixed. And I said, no, it's variable depending on various things. And he didn't actually understand what he was doing, but because he was able to do it and had been getting away with it for so long, he was able to do his job despite being technically naive. Anyway, those people were appalling snobs.
Lindybeige!